The family of the mother killed last week in the Pocket neighborhood is pleading with whoever is responsible to turn themselves in.
Yeah, her family says the victim is a 26-year-old loving mother of 2 young children. ABC 10's Roxanne Elias has their emotional plea for help.
A slew of emotions hit as this Sacramento family tries to understand how their sister, 26-year-old Chasity Sparkman, was killed on Valentine's Day.
It's especially hard for her kids. My auntie has to sit here and, deal with the mood swings, and she's trying to cope herself, so we're not okay. We're trying to be, but we're not okay.
We want to know the truth, We want an investigation. Justice. We want justice. We want them to turn themselves in. If they had nothing to hide, then they should be able to come forward and clear their name.
She was a firecracker. She loved everyone. She loved her family.
This is the story of Chasity Sparkman, a 26-year-old mother of 2 whose life was brutally cut short on Valentine's Day in Sacramento, California. A day meant for love and celebration turned into a nightmare when gunshots shattered the quiet of a local shopping center, leaving 2 young children without their mother and a family searching for answers. Lake Crest Village Shopping Center in Sacramento's Pocket neighborhood is a typical suburban shopping center where families shop for groceries, grab coffee, and go about their daily lives. But at 11:30 p.m. on Valentine's Day, this ordinary place became the scene of an extraordinary tragedy. Hello, dear viewers. Thanks for joining me on today's episode. Before I continue today's story, I want to express my deepest gratitude to each of you watching. Your engagement with these stories helps bring awareness to cases that deserve attention and justice. If you're new to the channel, join our community as we shed light on stories that must be told. Click the subscribe button and do well to like this video. Should you have anything in mind to say or add more details to this story, kindly leave your thoughts in the comment section below. With that said, let's continue. This story takes us to Sacramento, California, a city known for its rich history, vibrant neighborhoods, and a community that looks out for each other. But on Valentine's Day, 2024, the city woke up to tragedy. A woman was shot in cold blood in the parking lot of a bustling shopping center. She wasn't just anyone. She was a mother, a daughter, a sister, and a friend. Valentine's Day, as known to everyone, is a day that sparks debate every year. Some see it as a celebration of love, others dismiss it as commercial manipulation. But for the Sparkman family, February 14th will forever hold a different meaning. It's no longer about heart-shaped chocolates or romantic dinners. Instead, it marks the day when a mother went to meet her husband and never returned home to her children. She was a firecracker, her sister Ayonna Burgos would later tell reporters, her voice breaking with emotion. She loved everyone. She loved her family. These words paint a picture of Chasity Sparkman that stands in stark contrast to the violence that would claim her life. Who was Chasity Sparkman? To understand this story fully, we need to step back and look at the life of a young woman who touched so many hearts in her 26 years. A psychology student at Sacramento City College, this young woman wasn't just pursuing her own dreams. She was creating a better future for her 2 children, 8-year-old Ayonna and 6-year-old Princella. 2 young souls who now face a future without their mother's bright smile and endless love. In Sacramento's tight-knit community, Chasity was known for her unique ability to bridge conflicts. Her sister tells a story that captures her essence perfectly. If you know my sister, you guys could argue one day and she's going to call you the next day and say, "I don't care about you being mad, girl. What you doing?" It's a small detail, but one that speaks volumes about who Chasity was. Someone who refused to let anger or pride stand in the way of love and friendship. Alonzo Sparkman, Chastity's father and a man who had already endured the loss of brothers, sisters, mother, and father, would find himself facing unimaginable pain. "It hits different," he would later say, his voice heavy with grief, "when it's your child." A father of 20 children, Alonzo would now have to learn to live without the daughter who blew up his phone all day, every day.
I want to know the truth. because it hits different. You know what I'm saying? People understand, oh, I've lost a lot. I've lost a lot in my time, brothers, sisters, mother, father, stuff like that, cousins. But it hits different when it's your child. You know what I'm saying? I don't have that kid blowing my phone up all day, every day no more. It's kind of like being hurt, sad, angry, and afraid at the same time. Because you don't know what to be mentally. You know what I'm saying? My emotions are all over the place. As soon as they get apprehended, I feel a lot better. Once I know they're in custody, I be able to breathe. Because jail is hell for anybody. Because I feel once you're behind bars, you consider you deceased.
What makes this story particularly haunting isn't just the loss of a vibrant young life, but rather the circumstances that led to that fatal night. This woman was meeting with her husband in a shopping center parking lot, a confrontation that would turn deadly, and two suspects who would flee across the country, leading authorities on a nationwide manhunt. The full narration of this story I'm about to tell you isn't just about a murder. It's about love turned toxic, trust betrayed, and a family's relentless pursuit of justice. I desire that this story at the end will spark conversation about how we can curtail domestic violence and how vulnerable women can be best protected in our current society. Stay with me as we uncover the events that led to this heartbreaking loss and the pursuit of justice that would span from Sacramento to New York City. This is the story of Chasity Sparkman, a mother, daughter, sister, and friend whose light was extinguished far too soon, but whose memory continues to shine through those who loved her. To understand how a Valentine's Day meeting turned fatal, we need to look at the man at the center of this tragedy, Isaiah James. Because the world would eventually learn that behind Chastity's radiant smile and nurturing spirit, there was a complex relationship that ultimately led to her death. At 25 years old, the life of Isaiah James, who is the perpetrator in this story, had already been marked by a series of challenging circumstances, a criminal past. He grew up in a tough environment, made bad choices, and got involved in things he shouldn't have. And eventually, those choices landed him behind bars. Growing up in Sacramento, his path would eventually cross with Chastity's, leading to what family members describe as an intense relationship that would evolve from friendship to marriage. But like many stories of domestic violence, the red flags were there, hidden beneath the surface of what appeared to be a love story. What makes this case particularly compelling is the transformation that occurred. Those who knew Chasity and Isaiah in their early days together speak of genuine affection. They were neighborhood acquaintances who formed a connection, sharing dreams and building what seemed to be a future together. Their story might have been different if it had ended there, but life had other plans. The turning point came with Isaiah's incarceration. While many relationships crumble under the weight of separation, Chasity chooses to stand by her man. She would demonstrate the same loyalty that defined her relationships with family and friends, supporting Isaiah through his time behind bars. It was a testament to her character. The same unwavering devotion she showed to her children, she extended to her husband. But as we all know, prison has a way of changing people and relationships. While Chasity waited faithfully, maintaining their connection through calls and visits, something was shifting about her man. The man who would emerge from incarceration was not the same one who went in. Yet, few could have predicted how dramatically this change would impact their lives. Eventually, it turned out that Isaiah had another woman, named Ayonna Burgos, a 25-year-old woman who would become another critical figure in this tragic story. While police reports carefully avoid confirming relationships, family members paint a clear picture. This other lady had become Isaiah's girlfriend, creating a volatile triangle that would ultimately explode in violence. The months leading up to Valentine's Day were filled with tension. Chasity, now a psychology student at Sacramento City College, was focusing on building a better future for her children. But the situation with Isaiah and Ayonna was becoming increasingly complicated. Family members would later reveal that arguments and confrontations had become more frequent. What now makes this story particularly heartbreaking is the fact that Chasity was doing everything right. She was pursuing her education, caring for her children, maintaining strong family bonds, and trying to navigate a difficult situation with grace. Her aunt, Renee Brown, would later say that everything Chasity did was for her kids. She was working towards a psychology degree, perhaps hoping to help others navigate the very kinds of emotional challenges she was facing in her own life. The text messages and phone calls on Valentine's Day seemed routine enough. A meeting was arranged at Lake Crest Village Shopping Center. For those familiar with domestic violence patterns, meeting in a public place often feels safer. The shopping center, usually busy during daytime hours, would be quieter at 11:30 p.m., but still public enough to feel secure. But something was different about this meeting. Whether Chasity knew that Ayonna Burgos would be there remains unclear. What we do know is that a conversation turned into an argument, and an argument turned deadly. In a tragic irony, the shopping center's security cameras, meant to protect shoppers during business hours, would become silent witnesses to the violence that unfolded that night. The details of what happened in those final moments later emerged slowly and painfully, through police reports and family statements. It was a confrontation and an argument. And then, a sound that would shatter the night. Gunshots that would echo through the empty parking lot, forever changing the lives of everyone connected to Chasity Sparkman. The aftermath would reveal a carefully planned escape. While Sacramento police responded to reports of gunfire, Isaiah James and Ayonna Burgos were already putting distance between themselves and their actions. They wouldn't just flee to another city or state. They would cross the country, making their way to New York, perhaps hoping that 3,000 miles would be enough to escape the consequences of their actions. But as Chastity's father Alfonso would later say, the distance didn't matter. The pain, the loss, the emptiness, it followed the family everywhere. For Chastity's children, their young minds trying to comprehend their mother's absence, distance meant nothing. For her sisters, who lost their best friend and confidant, no amount of miles could separate them from their grief. According to family members, the events of February 14th began to unfold through a series of phone calls. What we know from Chastity's cousin, Renee Adams, is that there was an initial meeting that night. During this first encounter, things quickly escalated. They met up and were talking, which turned into an argument, Renee would later reveal. She, of course, got upset, and he beat her up like she was a dude. But what happened next shows the devastating cycle of domestic violence. After this alleged assault, Chasity and Isaiah spoke on the phone again. Despite what had just occurred, they arranged to meet one more time at the Lake Crest Shopping Center. It would be a decision that would cost Chasity her life. When officers arrived at the scene around 11:30 p.m., they found Chasity with at least one life-threatening gunshot wound. Sacramento Fire Department personnel rushed her to a local hospital, but despite their best efforts, she was pronounced dead. The shopping center that had been a familiar place for everyday errands became the site of an unthinkable tragedy. The exact details of what transpired during that final meeting remain part of the ongoing investigation. What we do know is that both Isaiah James and his girlfriend Ayonna Burgos were present. The confrontation that began as a conversation would escalate into violence, leaving two young children without their mother and a family shattered by grief. As the news of Chastity's death spread through Sacramento, her family rallied together, organizing vigils and pleading for justice. More than 100 people gathered in the very parking lot where she lost her life, holding candles that pierced the darkness just as Chastity's spirit had brightened so many lives. The investigation would stretch across the country, becoming a masterclass in modern law enforcement cooperation. Sacramento Police Department worked tirelessly with the FBI, proving that in this digital age, there's no place far enough to hide from justice. On March 12, 2024, exactly the same day as Chastity's funeral, law enforcement finally caught up with Isaiah James and Ayonna Burgos in New York City. Just because you commit a crime here and think you're going to get away by going to another city or state or across the country, our investigators are world-class, and they're going to find you, Officer Anthony Gamble would declare, his words carrying both pride in his department and a warning to others who might consider similar acts. For Chastity's family, the arrests brought a complex mix of emotions. It's such a relief. It's a blessing knowing that they're caught and justice is going to be served, Vanessa Renee Adams, Chastity's cousin, would say. But as any family who has lost a loved one to violence knows, arrests don't heal the wound. They merely stop the bleeding. Today, Princella and Zioni are being raised by their aunt, fulfilling their mother's wish for their care should anything happen to her. It's a testament to Chastity's foresight and eternal maternal instinct that even in death she ensured her children would be cared for by someone who loved them as she did. The story of Chasity Sparkman is more than a tragedy. It's a wake-up call. In a world where domestic violence often hides in plain sight, her story reminds us to be vigilant, to check on our strong friends, and to recognize that sometimes the brightest smiles mask the deepest pain. Her father's words echo this truth. You don't know what to be mentally. My emotions are all over the place. For those watching who might be in similar situations, remember that no one deserves to have their light dimmed by fear or violence. There are people and organizations ready to help, resources available 24/7, and communities willing to support you. Chastity's story shows us that domestic violence can happen to anyone, even those who seem to have it all together, even those surrounded by loving families. Imagine a love so pure, so dedicated, that it withstands the test of separation and time. Chastity exemplified this rare kind of loyalty. While others might have walked away when Isaiah was imprisoned, she chose to stand by him. She didn't just wait. She actively supported him through his darkest hours. She could have chosen an easier path, found someone else, and started fresh. But Chastity believed in second chances, in the power of redemption, in the possibility of change. She held on to hope, even when that hope might have been slipping away. What makes this tragedy even more heartbreaking is that her unwavering faith in love became the very thing that led to her final moments. She showed up on Valentine's Day, a day meant to celebrate love, still believing in the possibility of resolution, still willing to talk things through. Her sister's words echo this truth. She was someone who wouldn't let arguments linger, and who would always reach out to make things right. Even after the first confrontation that night, she agreed to meet again, perhaps hoping for understanding, for peace, for the sake of their shared history. The cruel irony is that the very qualities that made Chastity extraordinary, her forgiveness, her loyalty, her willingness to see the best in people, may have contributed to her vulnerability that night. She was a psychology student, learning to understand human behavior, yet her own compassionate nature might have blinded her to the dangers she faced. To Chastity, a mother who loved beyond measure, a daughter who brought joy to her family, a sister who refused to let arguments last, and a friend who touched countless lives. Your story will not be forgotten. Your children will grow up knowing their mother was a force of nature, a firecracker who lit up rooms and lived fully for them. They will know that their mother's capacity for love was so great that it knew no bounds, even when that love wasn't returned in kind. Your legacy isn't just in the lives you touched, but in the lessons your story teaches us about the delicate balance between loyalty and self-preservation, between hope and reality. To my viewers, your engagement with these stories helps bring attention to cases that matter. Each like, share, and comment helps spread awareness and potentially save lives. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing to join our community dedicated to sharing these important stories and honoring victims like Chastity. Remember, domestic violence thrives in silence. Speak up, reach out, and never underestimate the power of community support. The National Domestic Violence Hotline is available 24/7, and help is always just a phone call away. Should you need that, kindly check the description of this video. Until next time, take care of yourselves and each other. And remember Chastity's spirit. Love deeply, forgive quickly, and never let a day pass without telling your loved ones what they mean to you. I'll see you in the next video. Stay safe, and thank you for being here. Bye for now.